To me, the thing I like the most is you just walk out into a field that would have been a bare field of peas or lentils and nothing really growing there in October, and you walk out into there and there's oats that are up, you know, above your knee, and peas and lentils and fun brassicas, and you're actually out there at the end of October, you're picking peas and eating peas, which to me I thought was impossible. How would you have edible food crops growing at 4,000 feet in October in Northeast Oregon? Was like, if somebody would have told me that 10 years ago, I would have told them they were idiots. But I've seen it.
The growth of the weed has been improved quite a bit, and same thing with alfalfa too. I mean, it's penetrating down quite a bit deeper. I'm not seeing as much hard pan issues as I used to, especially when the place used to be traditionally farmed. We've gotten rid of a lot of the hard panning with that, especially in our hay rotations. And the cover cropping with the tillage radishes and the turnips, it really just breaks apart and really just, it makes the soil really easy to work with the next spring. And it's just been amazing to see what the nitrogen levels can do with some of these rotations and some of these seed varieties.
I looked into no-till, and I'd looked into the intensive grazing, and I didn't really see a huge benefit to it until I saw somebody who had been incorporating it into the cover cropping system in the Midwest, and for some reason when I thought about all three of those things together, it just kind of clicked.
We saw a huge bump in our alfalfa crop 2 years after the cover crop, and we had no farming after the Timothy sod. All these things were happening. It's like, we need to pay attention to what's going on. And so that's kind of how we got started. Plus, you always say this, I've seen it my whole life, but I didn't know what it was. We take an old fence out or main line out, it was a place you hadn't farmed, and there's this line in your field that's doing better than everything else. And we always knew that, but we didn't know why. Well, now we know why.
You're thinking, well, we might be doing a lot underneath the soil, but boy, that's going to be some good feed for the cattle. And so that's kind of the way it started. And it was primarily just the tillage radish and purple top turnip. And as the years have gone, we know we've been throwing some triticale in there when we do this, and that mix, or some barley or wheat seed, whatever you have left. And then grazing it off in the fall. Well, after a year or two of that, we're going, well, let's try something with this 20 acres or 30 acres in the springtime and plant some summer annuals with it, and seeing what the results are. I think there's enough benefit both to the soil and to the animals. I think we should have been doing this years and years ago.
We don't even own any tillage, so if for some reason we have to do some tillage, that's a little bit of a problem. But very diverse crop rotation, of course, is an aspect to that. And then now we're trying to use the cover crop. You know, we're trying to learn how to use cover crops. I can't say we know what we're doing, but we're trying to learn how to use cover crops in our operation. And so we found a natural fit already is when we take a pea crop off, we have learned that we can plant more peas, maybe some brassicas and oats into that pea residue right about the middle of August, and we can get a beautiful, you know, we can get a couple of feet of growth by middle of October. And we can, of course, luckily on our irrigated ground, we irrigate that up and get a nice stand. And we've learned that really lowers the weed pressure the next year, and we can really reduce our fertilizer usage. So it's been very beneficial in that area. And then we've learned that our climate is so short here that we can't really seed much for cover crops and get any kind of growth after middle of August. So we've learned to just start raising relay crops. And so we will go in, if it's a real heavy residue situation, we'll heavy harrow a field. But then if it's not a heavy residue, we'll just irrigate those fields up real quick and just irrigate up whatever's there, the wheat or the barley or whatever, and have a relay crop.
We kind of picked a different mix with triticale clover and Austrian winter peas, and I also did a corn and clover mix on another field. And that year we saw almost 2.5 pounds of weight gain a day on the yearling calves. So it was really interesting to see, like, how well they responded to the different mixes. And again, it's still just a learning process. You know, we're such high elevation that we don't know what's going to work. Sometimes you just have to kind of experiment and see what works. I have moisture probes in every one of the fields that I've been experimenting on. And I did one year where I harvested a wheat crop, and the other field was doing a cover crop, and I tracked their moisture all winter, and the cover crop field retained a lot more of the winter moisture the next spring than the wheat crop did. And the wheat crop, that field I had to irrigate a lot earlier and more often than the field that had the cover crops on. And it was amazing to see how much soil or moisture retention it had throughout the winters.
It's just a big equation with infinite variables. So whether we pull our nutrients from a petroleum product that was pulled out of the ground in North Dakota and then shipped to a plant and made into, broke down into its basic elements and pearlized and put on a truck and brought here. And the question is, how efficient of a use of our resources is that? And so if we can do that ourselves, and maybe at the cost of our cash flow a little bit, if we can drop our expenses in a manner to match, we're really, as producers, we're putting more of our system of life and production and management into our own hands. And it's tough. You got $5 or $6 wheat, and we raise 100 bushels to the acre around here. Well, the seed guy wants his cut, and the equipment guy's got to have his cut, and the banker's got to have some interest to justify loaning you the money, and the chemical guy gets a cut, and the fertilizer guy gets a cut, and by the time everybody takes their little percentage, and they're in business on margins, as their costs fluctuate, they just change their margins. And a lot of times when commodity prices are low, which is the definition of commodity, producers are the ones that don't have the margin left. So they subsidize that margin by working hard, paying themselves less per hour, any number of things that they can do to make their margin come out in a manner that they can keep farming. And I think this system puts more of those elements back under their management and control.
We farm for the neighbor, so we planted our alfalfa on the cover crop, and we planted his alfalfa conventionally. We did everything the same farming, same irrigation, same seeding rate, same everything, same time. We were 1.6 tons more on our new seeding alfalfa than his. So that's a number that I can work with. And the crop was very uniform. I mean, it all was the same. The other one was spotty and stuff, so definite difference. And that's the second time we've seen that, so we can quantify that's there. It's helping.
We're producing a lot of forage or living matter without any chemical input, and that's pretty interesting. I'd like to see the soil improve enough that we don't have to use anything but manure for fertilizer. Go back to the early 1900s.
Well, the challenge is knowing what to plant. Because for us, since we're already a very diverse operation, I can't just I'm going to throw tillage radish out here. Well, if I throw tillage radish out there, that's going to mess up my mustard crop or my canola crop I'm going to grow the next year. Or if I grow some wheat out here, I'm not going to be able to grow wheat. That's going to, bring in some different, soil-related issues. So trying to find crops that I can grow that are not going to mess up my rotation is a constant battle.
I guess finding appropriate places to throw it in has been the challenge. I think whenever we're getting ready to tear out a Timothy field, it's nice to, be able to plant it in the Timothy sod and have it really broken up by the next spring. And that's absolutely a place where we can fit it in at. I think as far as doing a full season cover crop, I think if you're going to do it, you have to use your own yearlings. It's hard to contract it out because it's tougher to pencil out, because they still, if it's someone else's cattle, they still have to make sure that their margins work. And with all your inputs on it, I just think it would work better if it's your own cattle doing that on a full season market. But it's been fun to still experiment with it and see how it works.
The question to me is not whether it works. whether the things that we're stating, that you're increasing organic matter and that you're increasing the biological activity in the soil and you're making your energy stores last longer, you're maximizing the minimum sunlight that you have. You know, I don't think it's a question whether anything of those things are true or not. It's just a question of how to make money at it. And you know, fortunately, wheat has been at such a low price lately that the opportunity cost of trying it is very minimal, because, you know, if you decrease your expenses dramatically, then you decrease your risk. And so I'm probably not making any more money than I would on an average wheat crop with this nutrient cycling today. But what I've done is I've dropped my risk from $300 to $400 an acre, which is the cost of putting wheat in and growing it and seeing it to fruition, to, you know, maybe $50 an acre plus land costs. And I'm really, right today, I'm really only breaking even. But that's all. With wheat, I would be breaking even to losing money, and I would be detracting from soil health.
I mean, we spent a lot of money on seed that didn't grow, but we've always had seed that did grow. We've had stuff that didn't grow as good. We've had, you know, I guess the only failure I've had is when I didn't terminate the previous cover crop to plant the new cover crop. That's really the only failure.
Start experimenting on a little bit. I mean, I don't know of any operation that can't afford to take a 20-acre field or 40-acre field and just start doing anything. And you're going to have to learn, because every ranch is so different. Your situation is different. You don't know what your tolerance to risk is compared to what my tolerance or another producer's tolerance is. So you gotta find out what your area you're willing to experiment in and start doing it, because you can't wait to find out what somebody else is say, oh yeah, this is going to work. Well, you know, I watch Gabe Brown videos all the time, and I have not been able to do what he comes up with very successfully yet. So, and I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years. So, you just got to get started with whatever you're comfortable with and try that.
Just keep trying to find the place where it makes the most sense to fit in. That's always the challenge. And then also, you know, still just trying to find what works in your area and what doesn't. And the nice thing with us is we just have a group of 6 or 7 neighbors that are willing to talk to one another. And that's been a huge difference, because, you know, I've had a list of seeds that I wanted to try out, and then I find out my neighbor has a similar list, and I say, okay, well, if you try those 3, I'll try those 3. And we'll just do field tours in the summer just to see what works and what doesn't. But a lot of that is just kind of cooperating with neighbors, because sometimes that pushes you to try something different, and if a neighbor's trying something different with you and you learn from one another, you can find an answer that works for you a lot quicker. We're not bitter if a neighbor does better than us. We more just want to know what the better way is.
Don't go into it lighthearted. If you don't commit, if you're not enthused about it, it has a high likelihood of failing, in my opinion, and just costing you money and giving you a negative opinion of the process. If you're really passionate about it, put a pencil to it, talk to people that have done it, and start slowly.
Find the weak spot in your rotation, I guess, and you just got to do it and try it. But that was it for us. I mean, it's a great rotation for what we're doing, and it took the weak link of our rotation out, and have a little fun with it. I mean, it's going to cost you. I mean, it's going to cost a little bit of money up front, but we don't own a no-till drill. We hire that done, and we no-till virtually all of that in. And so, but have a little fun with it.
If it works in Wallowa County, it will work anywhere, because our frost-free season is July 7th until August 15th. And we get killing frost clear up through July. You know, you just have that 3-week window where we probably don't have a chance of a killing frost. And if it works here, I think it can work anywhere.